So I'm very, very particular about what I watch because a lot of times I think most things are trash. I think if I was to open up Netflix and randomly scroll down and stop on a random thing, the thing that I stop on is most likely going to be trash. And I think you think so too, which means that the vast majority of media is trash. So I'm very particular about what I watch. Most things I don't even give a chance. The things that I do end up watching typically are going to be things that my friends recommend. And not just any friends, friends whom I respect particularly and who understand how particular I am about what I watch and therefore know that this better be a banger if you're recommending it for me. If it's just something that's good to them, they know better than to recommend it to me because I'm gonna be pretty freaking offended. With that being said, One Piece has been recommended by a lot of my friends. And just in general, it seems to be really, really popular. And I didn't want to invest the time into it because it seemed like it was way too many episodes and things like that. I went through a bit of depression after I had a breakup, so I decided, you know what? Now's my chance to go ahead and watch me some One Piece. And so I started it. So I'm going to do an analysis up to Water 7. For a long time, people kept telling me that the anime does eventually just pick up and like kind of pop off, and that I'll fall in love with it because in the beginning, it had a rough start. So look, I can say that the anime felt pretty listless in the beginning. Like I didn't know what I was gonna watch. I refused to watch trailers or any of that kind of information as that helps with immersion. If you haven't started doing that, start it, try it. Try watching a movie with no trailer, with no information and just go in completely raw. I promise you'll like it better raw than you would having like already been having already been exposed to all the stuff that's going to be in it. They give some of the best lines, some of the best one-liners, some of the best twists. They give all those things away in trailers. I think the most egregious example of this is watch the movie Get Out. Watch Get Out and watch its trailer. Get Out's full trailer has to be the worst trailer I've ever seen. They literally put the movie in chronological order. I don't watch trailers. So I did not know what this anime was going to be about. I had no clue whatsoever. And so I went in raw, and it starts off and you're meeting this character named Luffy, and he's going through whatever. And it seems kind of meh, to be honest. Like the character Luffy seemed like really brain dead and didn't make a whole bunch of sense. It's just like he just kind of exists. And so I was like not connecting with him at all. And he's going and he's meeting new people. He meets Zoro and all these things, and you start to feel like, okay, so Zoro seems like he's kind of that dude. He kind of popped off a little bit about who he was, but he wasn't really him. But ultimately, like I'm just trying to figure out, where is this even going? I have no idea. But then like eventually Luffy's like claiming, I'm gonna be the king of the pirates, and he's adding on people to his crew. Like it finally clicked for me when he added Sanji and Nami. Those two are when I was like, oh, okay, so right now we're in the assembling phase, right? So it's like, okay, so he adds on Zoro, then he adds on Sanji, then he adds on Nami, and I can say for the very first time where I felt something in the anime, like was when Nami was like carrying that load for her entire townspeople, and they were just like, hey, we know what you're doing, like you don't have to do this for us, like and that moment got me, and I was like, dang, I'm dang near tearing up, which is crazy. So I felt something there, and I was like, okay, that was a pretty moving, compelling story for this character who seemed kind of mysterious in the beginning, Nami, who was just kind of this distant, aloof person, and it's like, oh no, there's more to her than what we thought, and she's desperate because of what they went through. And then we see these fights with Luffy and all that stuff, and it was just like, okay, so it's pretty cool, right? Still not a banger of an anime, but it's just like, okay, there's something here. Then we get to the Usopp story, and I remember like watching it, and so Usopp's story is basically telling the boy who cried wolf. It's the boy who cried wolf in anime form, and I remember that's obviously an old Aesop fable. Holy smokes, is Usopp named that based like off of a play on Aesop from Aesop's fables? I wonder. Anyway, so Usopp he's like, lying and all that stuff. And there's a point in time when like he's like comes forward and he's really heroic. And I remember almost feeling like an intense feeling of emotion based off of that moment too, because it was like, wow, so they found a way of telling a story that I've always known because we heard Aesop's fables when we were kids. And now they're like kind of repackaging this story for young children. And so I thought about, if I was a young kid, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old or whatever, and I'm watching this anime, the profoundness of that story. Because the purpose of Aesop's fables are to be profound, such that you glean a lesson from them and apply them to actual life. And I was like, wow, that's really powerful for people who don't know that story. I mean, I'm a grown man now, so watching that, it's not profound, but it was still pretty cool the way they did it. So already I'm like, okay, I'm feeling this now, right? I like that there was a twist with the dude with the glasses, doing this thing and all that. And I was like, oh, that is pretty clever. I could have put that together. So I felt like there was decent writing there. But then, of course, now you got a new member in his crew, and it's like, okay. And so he keeps talking about, like, we need a physician, we need all these things. And so you see it, and it started becoming crystal clear to me that, well, this is because it's such a long anime, then it's all of these individual stories are all actually kind of building up towards something. And so it felt like, again, like kind of listless, because I'm like, I don't know where the anime is going. All he's doing is assembling a crew. I don't even know what really the grand line is. I don't know any of these things. And so it's like it's being talked about. But I'm getting invested slightly because I see the telling of a really great story, because each of these side characters, as they're joining, are mentioning things that are important to them. It makes me feel something even now. Like, so Nami, her whole thing is like, yo, I want to do a world map. I want to do a map of the entire world, which is like a crazy ambitious story. But that gives her character like some direction, right? And then it's like, okay, so Zoro is like, I want to be the greatest swordsman ever. And then they tell some backstory about him and why he wants to be the greatest swordsman. So it's like, okay, now he has that definition and direction. Sanji wants to find the all blue, right? And so as what I'm discovering is, as they're adding on these characters, each of these characters is not just like hey, I'm just here on the ride and I perform a function for Luffy so that Luffy can go ahead and be a pirate, a captain. It's more so all of these characters are individual characters in their own right, with their own definition and their own plot lines and their own goals and ambitions, but they are working together on this pirate ship, which seems like it's going to provide them the opportunity to do all of these things. So that, I was like, okay, in composition, this is huge. Because one thing that I don't like is when there's like one main character and everyone else is like this character that just provides a function for the main character, especially if I don't like the main character. And at this point, I don't like Luffy, because it's just like, who is this dude? He's just kind of dumb, just always really wanting food, not really putting a lot of thought into his actions. And I'm a pretty analytical person, so I'm disconnected from him already, right? And so I see the potential because of all of these side characters. Now, time goes on, we're adding in more people, we add in the doctor. That story wasn't as emotional as it was supposed to be. I know that it was like, for some people, that really pulled on people's heartstrings. I'm pretty sure of it because of the way that the anime did it, but it didn't do anything for me. It was just like, okay, Chopper's gonna join the crew, whatever. When we finally get to the Grand Line, I'm like expecting some sort of craziness, and they pretty much set you up with it from the very beginning. Like, oh, the winds are different, you don't know what's going to happen. Then you need log poles, the island. They're figuring out and discovering like the absurdity of this area, which gives you like the notion that this place is like kind of not just mysterious, but it's like esoteric in a way, such that you have to pay attention, because you're going to be learning all of these little facets which are important to even surviving in this place. And so like, as they're doing that, you're starting to get a sense and feel. They're like interacting. You start to see like some of the comedy bits and things like that. And it starts really kind of fleshing itself out, and it's becoming an anime. Because up till now, like until they got on the Grand Line, I was like, oh, it's whatever. Like, yeah, they got some decent fights. You learn about the devil fruit and about not being in the ocean and all. Like, you learn these little things, but it doesn't really, it's not doing it for me. And so in Alabasta, I remember the very first time I ever connected with Luffy was, so they went to Alabasta, and already like there's some scene where the queen is kind of giving up and whatever, and Luffy like hit her, I'm pretty sure. And he like says to her, like, don't you understand? Like, if you give up on your people are depending on you, but if you don't believe in you, believe in your friends. We're your friends. Well, and I remember that was the first time where I was like, all right, kind of redeeming moment for Luffy, just because I say redeeming. Okay, just to be clear, nobody else probably hates Luffy at this point, right? Because I'm just very, very particular. I don't like Luffy. I just thought that there was nothing to him. I need brains or else it just doesn't work for me, right? And so for this moment, I saw, wait a minute, Luffy's not necessarily brains right here, but he's character. Right here, he's like displaying this thing about this like this devotion to his friends. And so at this point, I'm like, okay, yeah, all right, Luffy, I see you. Because there's some people that really, really, really like Luffy, and I couldn't understand it from the beginning. I was just like, this character is insane. How do you even, like, what? There's nothing to him, okay? So that was like okay, that was kind of cool. And it gets way better because, so, you know, they eventually get there, they're doing their thing, and they're trapped in this, like, you know, the Sea Stone prison with a Smoker who Luffy was just getting washed by. And like they finally get out there, they escape, and like Smoker like does something to Zoro, and he's like, yo, why'd you save me, whatever? And he's like, don't ask me, ask him. And it flashes back to them being taken away, and then Luffy says, yo, Zoro saved that guy. That moment, even just talking about it right now, does something to my stomach, because that to me was one of the most heroic moments. Because here's a guy who's trying to capture you, who is the enemy, who you realize you can't even compete with, and here you decide to save his life. And he's like, yeah, of course, we're enemies. Like, you know, I know you're gonna try whatever, but I like you. And it's just like, that moment was the first time where I felt like, man, okay, Luffy, I kind of like the character of Luffy, even if he's not the brainy, intelligent person. I felt like, yo, that was, I don't know, it was just a very powerful moment that I'm a pirate, you're the Marine, you're trying to capture me, you're stronger than me, and I'm still going to save your life because I just think you're a cool guy and I don't think that you deserve to die here. That showed some goodness in Luffy that I just, you know, that you just can't, you have to respond to that character. It's not an intelligent thing, because to be honest with you, the intelligent thing is to let that dude die because he's a threat. It works out to his benefit. But yeah, so that was a moment. Then, you know, he gets in the fight with, you know, the hook guy. I can't even remember his name right now. I'm terrible with names. I'm probably going to forget a lot of names. But he gets in the fight with that dude, and there was like the whole blood thing and him using that to like fight. And I was like, okay, yo, this is a moment. Okay, like he's him. Okay, this is where I'm starting to know Luffy the fighter, like where he is that guy. Okay, so I think at this point now, like that's when the anime is starting to become a genuine anime to me. Still not great, but just a genuine anime where it's like, okay, it's picking up its own, it's doing what it's doing. Okay, so it's like, all right, so now we learned about the poneglyphs a little bit and all that stuff. Okay. Up to this point now, again, I'm still not fully connected. And he ends up saving Nico Rodman, who kind of gave up on living and all that stuff. And he like saves her, and she's on the crew, and I despise her. I don't care about that character at all. She seems so distant and vague and not really important. And she's always off kind of seeming like she's doing her own thing. She seems incredibly powerful, but still, I don't think she's particularly important. So I don't care about her. That character means nothing to me. And she's alone, and I know that she's like, oh, she's going to be the historian. She's going to be the one, like, she's performing a function. Exactly what I'm talking about. Up to this point, she has no character. So it's like, yeah, she's just going to be performing a function. She's going to be the person that's on the crew that basically is just like, yeah, I'll be able to give us like history about this place, or give us like information about, you know, whatever. Like she's the map study, or the, you know, the whatever. And I'm just like, that's functional. But so far, she's not connecting with anybody in the crew. Really, she seems like very, very aloof and distant. So it's like, yeah, you're not a Straw Hat. You're not part of this. You're just somebody that came along. You're the side character that probably shouldn't even be having any lines outside of what you're doing. Meanwhile, all these other people have relationships, and it feels like she's like the outsider. I'm just gonna fast forward really, really heavily, because at this point now we've seen like Zoro getting down, and we've seen all these people, they've become incredibly strong, and we start realizing how insanely powerful these people actually are. And up to this point, I don't know who's more powerful out of Zoro and Luffy. I just see that every single fight they get into, like that they're telling like these different, like that they're getting stronger and they're dealing with different things. Well, look, here's what happens. There is an island that I thought was useless, and this is one of the things that almost made me kind of fall out of love with the anime. It was the the giant island. When they got there and they were like fighting those people, and the giants were fighting, and they're like meeting them, and it's like, oh yeah, and they're like telling the story. They're just like, yeah, we've been fighting all this time. We don't know why. And the crew gets involved, and then one of them gets poisoned and whatever, all that stuff. And it was like, it just doesn't even make any sense. Like I don't know, just nothing was really adding up, and they were just like not giving details, and they were just like, yeah, we don't even know why we're fighting anymore. And I remember it was like an innocuous story, and I remember thinking to myself, this is one of those things that we'll just never know. It's just part of the plot. It's just part of the thing that, just to move the story forward. And this is not a detail that they actually want to tell us. So we just got to move on. And I don't like that. I don't like open-ended stuff. I don't like not knowing. I don't like the details not being fleshed out. And I remember feeling like it's kind of garbage, but whatever. We just move on. Like they fought the candle dude. They learn, you know what I mean? So we're learning a whole bunch. And so it's like, okay, whatever. But so we move on. So fast forwarding past all that, we get to Water 7. And this is where my friends are telling me like, hey, this is like the arc. This is where you fall in love with the anime. Okay. And I'm like, all right, maybe we'll see. Cause up to now, again, I still don't love it. Is it becoming way better such that I think it might be, it's watchable. It's watchable, right? So it's like, okay, sure. But it's not fully there. Wait, before we do that, we get to Skypiea. When we get to Skypiea, I remember that arc, I liked it a lot. And I talked to my buddy afterwards, and he said, people don't like that arc. And I think it's insane. One, I think we really get to see like this world expansion. They keep doing it, okay? This is what's happening already in this anime that's like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. Every now and then they'll give us a glimpse of something that like shows us the expanded world of this anime. For instance, at one point, even with the marine thing, I love the fact that Smoker later on tells someone else, like, you're gonna have to decide what's right and wrong here. It's gonna look one way and you don't know what's right and wrong. You're gonna have to be the one, because I get our intelligence, I get what we've been reported. I'm saying you'll have to determine based on your own heart. No one can tell you. And I think Smoker at that point made that determination because Luffy saved his life, and he realized that there was something else going on, and he realized like these aren't bad guys. And so now I think there's this like conflict. Now, a quick aside, I love conflicted plot lines. I love depth. They create depth. When something is as simple as just morally good and abjectly evil, that's stuff that you design for 10-year-olds because they don't really want to hear the complexities of whatever. Captain Hook is just a bad guy. Okay, that's it. Peter Pan is the hero, the good guy. When you get older is when you start dealing with conflicted characters, where it's like, it's a bad guy, but it's bad because of a specific motive. He has a genuine motive. We just ideologically disagree, but he's not necessarily just evil. It's just he has a motivation that's counter to what we want, so we have to fight this. That's what real conflict is. And I love that in a character. And the anime is becoming that because Luffy is a pirate. He's a bad guy, but he doesn't seem to be bad. Almost everywhere he goes, he helps. Every person he's dealing with, he leaves them better off than when they were whatever, even though he don't eat all their food. But my point being, he's not a bad guy. So there's this conflict already because we're rooting for the bad guy in this scenario. So I think those conflicts and everything, they mean everything to me. So when I looked at like, I'd used an AI to like analyze my movie preferences because I made a list, a top 30 movies of all time. Me and all my friends got together and did that, and then spent a couple years just watching each other's favorite movies so that we could like just see what the best movies were. And so I like fed all that into an AI, and it told me basically that that's what I like. I like moments where a character is fighting against a grand system in which the character's main goal is to so the character's fighting against a grand system that's working against him, and the character has to pretty much risk it all in order to accomplish a big feat where the odds are stacked against him, and there is a conflict in morality. That's what I like. So what this ends up being is dystopian. In case you don't know, my favorite genre without a doubt is dystopian. Anything dystopian, I'm automatically going to like it more than I would like non-dystopian things. So that's the place where I am not objective enough to be fairly analytical, because if it's dystopian, I'm automatically going to fall in love with it. And so when the AI described this to me, it started recommending things to me that had that same kind of idea that weren't dystopian. And so then I ended up watching movies like Adjustment Bureau, which was like a 10 out of 10 movie for me, because I'm like, whoa, yeah, this is exactly it. And it's not dystopian. They keep hinting at this thing, okay? I hate it because now I'm getting got, okay? Because this anime is starting to pop the freak off, and I don't like it because it's just, yeah. So anyway, so look, it gets dystopian, or no, I'm sorry, not dystopian, but they keep hinting at things. There's a point where they're just like these admirals talking about like, yeah, these people are becoming too powerful. We need to change their bounty level and da-da-da. And you start seeing like, oh wait, are there some people pulling the strings behind the scenes? Like, what the freak is going on? Like, yeah, we're letting these pirates exist, but these ones are becoming, and it's like, what? Excuse me? And it seemed like these dudes they're them. Like, yo, we're here, okay? And so I think when I see that situation, it's starting to like really like pique my interest a lot. Like, wait, okay, so there's something more than just this listless anime about trying to be the Grand Line and be the king of the pirates. There's like a whole nother realm here that we're just not aware of. And now we end up dealing with, Skypiea arc, and there's this guy who has this Logia fruit, I think they called it, and it's just like, hey, yeah, this devil fruit power is way better than the other fruit powers. And it's like, oh, okay, so this is a whole nother level. Okay. And so then now we're starting to see, so there's levels and tiers to this thing even. So then now we're starting to see like, oh, the government's allowed. It gets kind of crazy where it's like, okay, yeah, there's a whole nother, like it's expanding in a way where the things that we've known, it's like it's spoon feeding us all the details in order that we know, so that it gets to tell us the bigger story, but we need to know all the foundation of it first. So it's speaking to me, and I'm like, dang, it's kind of popping off. And so when I saw the Alabasta situation, ironically, right now, it kind of even reminds me of the Israel-Palestine situation, in the sense that, like, yeah, you have like a perspective, and you have your intelligence, you're seeing things, but there are some. I'm sorry, the Israel-Palestine situation. You start to see like, oh, okay, so yeah, as a Westerner, I've seen all this media in this way, but now you start doing some diving, you see like some of the stuff for the, like oh, we might have been misguided here. Maybe there weren't babies. Anyway, so there's like a whole bunch of stuff, and I'd start seeing all of these little parallels. So now, long story short, we get out of there. I watched this filler arc that people say is really good, where they're in this naval base, and I hated it. And I almost stopped watching. I lost the motivation. It took me like 2 months to watch that arc, because it just wasn't doing anything for me. I'm like, what is this? We just get to the next like point. What is the point of this? None of this seems like it's not even relevant. It just doesn't matter. And then I learned that this was filler, and people said it was good filler, and I didn't remember that it was filler as I was watching it, and they were like, it's good filler, you can watch it. No, you can't. I don't like filler. I need substance, and that had no substance. But there was one filler arc that I watched about like some rainbow mist with some, I think, kid named Kenjo and all that stuff. That made me feel something too. But anyway, so now we get to Water 7. When we get to Water 7, I think is where, okay, so like, there's like this whole falling out between Usopp and Luffy. I mean, yeah, and it just didn't make any sense to me. It was the dumbest thing on the planet. It's like both of them were communicating poorly, and that's one of my pet peeves in cinema. When the plot moves forward because people refuse to communicate, or someone does something really dumb and out of character, then that automatically makes me lose respect for whatever it is that I'm watching. And so in this situation, they're fighting over the ship, and they're both in like, whatever, and Luffy's not directly communicating to Usopp, like, hey, no, they've given us the report. This literally can't be repaired. We have to let it go. And you can say, oh, it's because they're emotional. I don't make that excuse. Nope, just bad writing. I'm sorry. Nope. They should have communicated. It was terrible. Anyway, so I don't like that. They're dealing with these Water 7 folks, and you're seeing that these people is powerful and so on and so forth. And I think seeing Luffy fight those people who can do that, like the speed stuff and all those kinds of things, seeing that and seeing like, oh, there's still this crazy power imbalance. It was already like, whoa, okay, so there's still another level here. And I think that's always been happening. Every time we're seeing people level up. I remember the very first time Nami got into a fight and she had to use her like special weapon. That was like a powerful thing for me. It was like, whoa, like this is like really, really huge. Like Usopp designed this thing for her. She had to be intelligent enough to learn to use it. And then she did it, and she ended up beating somebody, and it was like, okay, that's cool. Zoro had to learn like how to really connect with this blade in order to like cut through steel. And it was like, dang, okay, this is cool. So each time we're seeing them level up, and I love that. I love progression. And so it seems like it's not just a matter of, hey, we're winning a fight and we're quote unquote stronger through power creep number nonsense like Dragon Ball Z. They're actually learning methodologies and things that they can apply into the future. Now it's up to the anime to capitalize on this new information, on the knowledge of the characters, on this journey. Otherwise, it's just, okay, so they learned it, but it doesn't really matter. But if they actually apply it and make it useful, now it becomes way more significant. So I thought that that was pretty freaking huge. We're seeing, again, all this development. So the anime is progressive. It is picking up. And Water 7, I think, is where it really... Okay, so we're watching it and everything is happening, and now the anime is starting to get real in the sense that, you know, Mary's gonna be gone. That was supposed to be a crazily emotional thing. It wasn't for me. It was like, okay, it's a ship. I get it. Yeah. Oh, there is a thing though. Okay, so the anime is starting to do this thing that I find one of the most attractive things in any kind of media. I love foreshadowing. It's one of my favorite things. Like The Sixth Sense was one of my favorite movies. It's in my top 30 because I love foreshadowing. I love twists, but only twists with really good foreshadowing, such that I should be able to have seen the conclusion had I paid attention enough. If you do a twist without the foreshadowing, then it's not, you don't get an aha moment and you didn't really do it well. Likewise, if you do a bunch of foreshadowing, but it gets all washed away and it doesn't mean anything in the end, then that's also very dishonest with your viewers. So they keep doing things like, for instance, there's that point where somebody's working on a ship and they don't understand who or what. That moment was like, what is this? I need to know who this is, and they haven't revealed it, but we'll find out one day. They're gonna do it, I hope. Or not. It's just, this is another one of those stupid, innocuous things that just happens and we just have to ignore it. Because Lost did that to me. It hurt my heart. Now, when time goes on and we now in Water 7, they're dealing with Mary and whatever, so on and so forth, and they eventually learn about like how Mary worked on itself in order to like help them. Like that Mary has a ghost and so on and so forth about that legend. And I was like, okay, it's far-fetched, but this is part of the anime and it's totally cool. And now we know. So this wasn't in there for no reason. Okay, that there was a detail. It did matter. It is important to the actual like point of the story. It does come into play again, even later on. But so it's like, yeah, this is huge. So it's like, okay, so now at least you're doing the thing where you're putting in details and those details actually do matter. And now we've like developed things with these drive, I want to call them drive impacts or whatever. I'm thinking Street Fighter 6, but with these things, I can't think of the name right now. Drive, whatever, that they got from Skypiea, and that they're making them more powerful and all those things. So now we have something better for Usopp, so he has a value, and so all of this stuff is happening, and when they finally get like the military takes away whatever, and they're about to go to this base. Okay, I'm skipping around because I'm moving forward. First off, when Nico Robin disappeared, already I'm like, yeah, I don't like this character. This is stupid. Like, I already knew it. She just has been aloof this entire time. How could she do what she's doing? This is really gross, so on and so forth. And I'm like, ugh, whatever. Sanji sees her and she's just like, nah, I'm not about it. And I'm just like, yeah, what is this? Like, I already didn't like this character to begin with. What the freak is going on? Now Luffy is over there fighting, and they gotta like communicate and tell the people like, we didn't do this. Like, she was disconnected. Usopp goes over there. He gets washed by them other dudes who spend their money, which was really dumb from the first place. Part of Luffy being really stupid. You left Usopp by himself to get kidnapped to lose your money, which you know you shouldn't have done in the first place, because bro, like, it's Usopp, like dude who's been weak this entire time. Although he is like, he's been working on the ship. Usopp is the funniest character on the show. He is OD comedy. The way he acts, like, I mean, and that's one of the things that has really been the character of the anime for me as well, is that the whole time plots are going and things are developing, and Usopp, they'll like have him like as a small character off to the side in the background saying a really quick one-liner. I remember one time it was like people were saying something about some ghost and he said, so-and-so, please don't say that. Like, and but it's really comically like done. And then of course you got Sanji, who was like OD, like into the women, like in a crazy lustful, and he's just being really very, very, very overtly, I don't want to call him a predator, but you know what I mean? Yeah, he, you know. So anyway, so I think like all these characters are very, like these things are funny. I don't find the beef with Sanji and Zoro to be particularly funny. It's just like a thing that they did with the characters. Doesn't do anything for me at all. But I've always been wondering this entire time, who's stronger between Luffy and Zoro? Because it seems like both of them kind of are him, and they're just fighting different battles and in different ways, but they both seem incredibly powerful. At this point right now, I kind of think Zoro might be stronger than Luffy. Now, the plot goes, they get on the train, they're going, people are in different places where they need to be. They've already like developed the trope that Zoro just don't know where he's going. Half the time he's always getting lost. Sanji kind of is this person that seems like he's not the most powerful. He doesn't seem like he's insanely powerful. He's him, but not insanely. But he always seems to be at the right place at the right time. And that's his character. So now, like, you know, they get on the train, they eventually discover Nico like kind of sacrificed herself for them, and they're just like, nah, we ain't letting this go down. This is our friend we're going for. And I'm like, nah, don't do that. She ain't all that. You know what I mean? But they go in there and they're going to go save her. And so they get on the thing, they're traveling, all of that. And now they're all in different areas. They're on the train and they're like having to go through the train, like Sanji and Sanji's on the train and you have to go through to fight these different people, and he's kind of whipping out. So I'm like, dang, okay, you kind of real. Now Luffy, they get on the extra train and they go in and they're about to figure things out. And this is where I develop a profound appreciation for the relationship between Zoro and Luffy. Because as it stands now, Zoro has been the most intelligent person on the show. No. Zoro has been the most wise person on the show. The most intelligent person on the show is obviously Nico Robin, whom I don't like. Zoro is always having like really like mature, profound things to say to Luffy to pretty much guide him. So for instance, when they're like fighting with him and Usopp, and Zoro tells him, hey man, no, don't start doubting yourself now, because we're depending on you. And if we can't trust you, who can we trust? Very wise. That dude is just profoundly wise, and that automatically makes him my favorite character. Whatever. Like I'm into that character already, and he's already been whipping out. So it's like, man, and he's him. So I'm like, I'm already feeling this character, and they're on the train and they're dealing with nonsense. And there's parts where Luffy just says to Luffy says like. They're about to counter this dude who's like in front of the train, and Luffy just says to Zoro, deal with that guy. Zoro's like, got it. It gives me chills, okay? Because at that moment, this dude is supposedly him. Everybody else is like, yo, this is rank, whatever, da-da-da-da-da. I'm him. And Zoro's just like, got you. He jumps forward ahead of the train, and it's just like, yo, I'm telling you now, move or I'm in you, right? And that dude, he's like, nah, we about this action. Of course, Zoro slaps him, and then Luffy's like, yo, get back on, you know, whatever. And he gets back on, and it's just that moment to me, it pointed something out to me. Zoro's the most wise. He might arguably be the most powerful. I don't know yet. We haven't had a reason to find out for sure. He's the most wise and probably the most powerful, and he's still behind Luffy. Luffy is the captain, and people keep making statements about it. That guy is being commanded by him, but he's not even the captain, right? And so this is such a thing because it basically shows you that even though Luffy is not the most intelligent by far, he's listless, he's kind of irrational and whatever, he has surrounded himself with the most ambitious and great people. Sanji is that dude. One thing that filler arc, the Marine base that I watched, is just displayed how insane his cooking is. Like he's done that so many times where he's like shown people, hey, this is what you can do. You can use everything. Like, and it's just like, oh man, I've appreciated Sanji as a cook. I have. And I think, so now you have that. Nami is like a gifted map maker, not just a person that can do maps. She's a gifted map maker. So then it's like, okay, I resonate with that. I'm not trying to suck myself, but I'm saying like, I think I've always resonated in media with gifted people because that's been my life. Like in the sense that, so from 3 years old, I've just been able to do what I do with music, right? And it's just been part of me from like literally before I can remember. And so always hearing as a young kid, like how gifted I was. And then like when I started doing work and people like kept remarking, like actual musicians, like, whoa, man, this is insane. And like having that from people who have been doing music for 50 years, like see me do what I do and then go, what, how are you even doing that? Like that, like I've always operated within my gift. I've always known what my gift was, never had a doubt about it. So then when I see gifted people, it just like it's a resonance with me, right? Because it's just like not just to be a person that's trained and done this thing, but to have like a talent for it. And so all of them are really talented. So Luffy now has assembled within his crew the most talented people like that you can imagine. All of them are ridiculous, okay? And so then that makes you feel really good. And I thought maybe from that arc that they were gonna get that old man within the Marine Corps, like who was like the shipwright person, like to do some work on Mary, and that was gonna become their shipwright. And I was like, I don't really resonate with him as a character. He don't seem like he should be him, but either way, they don't. But it did click on me, like, hey, to be in Water 7, they're going to go get a shipwright. Like this is what they need, and this is where they get it. And so I'm like, okay, so this is like, another person to assemble on the crew. I don't know what else you're going to need for the crew, but I figured this is another person. So the anime still hasn't defined itself yet, to be honest with you. It's not a full anime yet. Water 7 happens. Now we get over there to Enies. And like there's all this stuff, and they're telling you about like how people, and we see the military being very manipulative, and the Marines being very manipulative and like trying to extract information, and you find out about hidden history and all of those things. As a black man, you got to understand why that's particularly profound for me. But so anyway, so I'm like hearing about that, and then like now we're learning about like Nico Robin's history and about how like they had the tree of knowledge and so on and so forth, and the parallel that this is to the library at Alexandria and how that was destroyed. And all of these things, right? Like this parallel twice, by the way, and how there's this great knowledge of these really powerful people and all this kind of things, information and all of that stuff. And so I'm like really resonating with all of that thing. And so now we're seeing who Nico Robin was as a little girl. Still not particularly moved because I don't like that character. I don't care about her, so she can get out. But yeah, I get it. It's an emotional moment, but not for me, okay? Because I don't care about Nico Robin. So now we're watching it, and like they're doing it, and they're fighting, and they're coming up with the plan. Luffy jumps ahead of everybody else, and he's just like, we came up with a whole plan, and Luffy's like, nah, and he does what he does. And I'm gonna tell you, at this point, I'm already annoyed because I'm like, here's the character. But this feels like it's a trope of the main character being out of the whatever, so that way everyone else can fight, and then the main character can be the hero to save the day, and then we see how powerful the main character is by comparison. That's what I think is going to happen, but that's not what's happening, because the rest of them are actually dealing with like very serious battles. And here's the beauty of the anime. All right, I'm starting to cook now. All right, look. The beauty of the anime is when Luffy always finds himself in like distant fights fighting some crazy person, the other fights aren't they're not inconsequential. All of these characters are characters in their own right, and we're finding that very often within these arcs, different sections of the characters go off and do things together, and you're invested into all of them because all of the characters are not just functional side pieces. These are all functional characters. If they wanted to do a Zoro anime in and of itself, it would work. If they wanted to do a Sanji anime in and of itself, it would work. All of these characters are characters in their own right. So now when Luffy's off doing stuff, I'm still invested in his plot and this other plot, and there's multiple plots all happening at the exact same time, and it's all working together to become this like crazy story towards this common goal. And it's just like, okay, so this is actually working quite a bit. And each time you see people get pushed off to the side to do something, but it's never for no reason. Each person gets pushed to the side with an actual motivation and something to actually happen. And so now we're developing all this information. Luffy's going completely nuts, like fighting thousands of people at a time. We're just seeing him function in a way that I've never seen him function before. And it's like, yo, this dude is on point. So it's like, okay, so now I'm starting to question, maybe Luffy is him. Maybe he is more powerful than Zoro, okay? But now they're fighting giants. They're coming up with plans and all of whatever. They defeat these people. They got these dragon things that's helping them and all of these stuff. And, you got the fodder dudes who's there just to save their boy Frankie. And you just got all these things that are developing, and it's kind of crazy. And so now there's a part where Usopp gets lost and he's back there with the giants. And the most profound thing that Zoro says in that little section for me is because like they're scared, like, oh my gosh, Usopp's by himself, he's gonna get bodied. And Zoro says, no, if he can't survive something like this, he shouldn't even be with us. Each island we've gone to, we've all gotten more and more powerful. Him too. He'll be okay. And I think it really connected a bunch. It just made me like reflect. Like, whoa, yeah, you're right. That first time when Nami used her thing, that was cool. The first time when Luffy had to level up and learn to do, different abilities. Wow. Now he's got this Gear 2 thing. I don't even know what the freak this is. What is happening with it? I don't even know, but he was going, he was moving, he was him. And it's like, whoa, okay. So we're starting to see now, yeah, they are all leveling up. Sanji had to learn like how to perfect his kicking and all that stuff when he fought that one dude. So it's just like, yo, yes, they are leveling up. The first time Luffy fought that dude and he had to use his brains, and I was just like, yo, that was very, what's the word? I want to say intuitive, but it's not it. He just showed ingenuity. He showed ingenuity when he like ended up using like his, like the thing, put the dude in oil, lit him on fire. He was just doing all that stuff. And it was like, okay, all right. So you have a methodology of how you can succeed as well. You're very like, you're a tactician. Usopp is a tactician. And so that was kind of cool. And then it was like, long story short, as this thing is popping off now, they're like, we're seeing like, okay, these are the people. They're about to take these devil fruits now that were already really powerful. We're finding out who the military are, that these people were really trying to get this weapon, that there's some hidden history, why Robin is so important and all this stuff. And they're going to go save her. And she like, we now know that she did sacrifice herself for them, but then like they're giving her opportunities and she's just still not kind of about it. And so I'm like, ugh, you stupid character, freak out of here. Of course you would just not care. But then, so now they're fighting and they're doing everything they can to do this thing. And again, this is that thing. Remember that the AI told me. I like when people are like, they're going all out. No person has ever came here and escaped this thing before. Like, this is so huge, but they're doing everything to risk it all. Again, there's a conflict in morality. This is a Marine base, but these dudes seem like they were being kind of shady. And so now we're like the pirates, but we're also the good guy trying to protect our friend. And our friend had complex morality and actually sacrificed herself and was doing some what seemed like was going to hurt us. But in reality, she did it just so that we could live. And so it's like, man, she really did have our backs at the end of the day. Now we're finding her conflicted history and all of these things and why she's been the way that she is. And so it's like why she has to be so distant. So now they're giving definition to the character. And so everything is starting to like really come together really cleanly in this anime in a way that it hasn't. So now it's becoming like an anime that I can recommend. Because up to now, it's like something I watch that I can't tell people like, yo, you have to watch this. If I recommend something, it's because it's really good. And this is not that yet. But now it's starting to be like, ugh, it's kind of hitting. I ain't gonna lie. It's speaking to me. And so now when Usopp is back there with these giants and he's talking to them, and then they start talking about like, we couldn't save you, big bro. And he's like, what you talking about? And then like they tell the story of these giants, and it's like, no, you're not gonna do this to me. So now that innocuous story that I thought wasn't important actually has a value and it's actually meaning something. And so now the character is actually like telling this story. And so now it's like, oh my God, so that wasn't an innocuous story. So now these people tie into this and now they end up joining him. So it's like, wait a minute. So that thing was a setup. I told you, foreshadowing does it for me. So it's like, wait, so this was all a setup for us to be able to learn this thing and yada, 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 yada. It's like, okay, all right. You're winning. So now these people are on our side. So now we're fighting. They get all the way there, and it's like kind of desperate. They're getting closer to the thing, and you got this cocky dude who thinks, yeah, y'all can't do nothing about it. But then they end up getting up over there, and they end up saving, whatever. So there's these moments happening, and now Robin is at a point where, like, Luffy is like at a point where he's like, yo, I'm trying to save you, but you gotta tell us you want it. And she says she wants to live. I'm not telling it in a build-up way because that's not my job. The anime's job is to do that. Y'all have seen it. So when she says that line, and I want to live, it was like, oh, it kind of hit. Like, hey, yeah, she, it was a moment. It was a moment. I ain't gonna lie, it was a moment. Then you had the fights and the keys, and they showed the devil fruit. Man, eating the devil fruit, it was nasty, but they got these powers. Each person has to fight in a different way. Sanji's fight. He fights this woman and he can't clap her. And Nami's like disappointed. Did she beat you, bro? Or did you hold back? And he's like, I can't hit a woman. She's like, even if you're gonna die? He was like, it was beaten into me to be chivalrous. And I was like, and so he's like, I can't break it. Another quick aside. People that know me know I was raised in what I call a cult, what many people call a cult. You can look it up. I think it's a cult, but a cult-like organization. When you have something instilled in you at such a young age that it forces you into believing in a certain way, to try to divorce yourself from that thought is almost impossible. It's still a work in progress. It wasn't until 2017 that I was able to for the first time say, yeah, I think it was a cult. Now, I'd heard so many people in my personal life tell me, yo, that's a cult. That sounds like a cult, whatever. And each time I would dismiss it and be like, oh, these people are lost. They just don't understand the truth. So I guess for me, I'm always like kind of reflecting through media on my personal experience, my own empirical like journey in life. And so hearing him say this and like it clicked for me immediately. I can't do that. I understood it. Nami said, you know what? You're an idiot, but I do kind of respect your chivalry a little bit more. And I was like, dang, man, that was a moment. That was an important moment. And so again, I'm paraphrasing really crazily, but I'm telling you, all these little segments, these little details are like what create the richness in the anime. And it wouldn't matter if Sanji wasn't his own story, and if they didn't have this, amidst all these giant plot lines, if they didn't have this constant banter between the two of them, and him and Nico Robin, and all the way that he is, and all that stuff, like all of that stuff, it all has a point, and it's like they're building on it. And so it feels like, man, it's really becoming something great, to be honest. Not just, but it's still not there yet, 100%. And so I'm watching, we're starting to learn all this different stuff where they're talking about like all this modal fruit, which I still don't fully understand. Man, like you got different animals and it's like, yeah, I'm a dog, and it's like, what the freak is this? Okay, so that's a new thing. Okay, so now we're learning something else. It's just, there's so many details. And then now they mentioned something. There's this pirate. Oh, yeah, the pirate, Jaguar D. Saul. And they asked him what the D, and he was like, it's just something everybody in our name, in our family, in my family has. And then now we know his name is Monkey D. Luffy. And then, so I'm like, I think these people are connected. That might be his family. I don't know, right? Then it's like Gold D. Roger. It's like, is Luffy like a descendant of the great pirate, right? So here's the thing. Now, because the anime has been so fair and so honest and has done decent foreshadowing that has been played upon at this point, now I'm starting to feel like all of these details are actually significant, where it's like, they're not wasting anything. Everything is like, it has a purpose and a plot and a point. If you look at my top 30 movie list, you'll see a lot of those movies have that. My number one movie is the most precise, dense movie ever created, for sure. And so this anime is starting to do that thing. It's like, man, it's just kind of crazy. It's starting to hit. There's a point where, like, after they like the battle and all that stuff, and Luffy gets to a certain part, and you hear him yell, "Robin!" And she gets this smile. She's just been kind of distraught and despondent, and realized she's just going to this, this dungeon. And it's a pretty dire situation. And she smiles when Luffy yells her name. And I think that was like it's just that Luffy heroic moment. It's like, bro, he's him. Now Luffy gets in this fight and he has to level up OD, and he's going into gear 2 and gear 3 and doing all this stuff, and it's like, okay, no, Luffy, you might be him. I don't even know what gear 3 is yet, but he did it one time to break down a door. So it's like, okay, so now this is a new thing, and he's like using his legs as pumps, and it's like, oh, you probably got that idea from the engine. That's one thing they should have done better. They should have really detailed where he was getting this idea. We have to put it together ourselves about like, hey, by the way, I just got this new ability now. I got something new I want to try. That's how we knew it was going to happen. I got a new thing I want to try. It's like, well, what's this new thing, and how'd you get there? And it's like, gear 2. Where? How? Where'd your brain come up with that? They haven't revealed that at all. But someone says something else that's really profound, that really just makes you like pay attention, that you just didn't know. And they were like, yeah, just something about that guy Luffy. He just it seemed like he always picks the strongest person to fight. And there was a moment where Luffy says, I'm gonna fight that guy. I get chills when I think about it, because it's just like, man, this is becoming very, very long. I'm sorry. But it's like Luffy is basically, he's that guy, and he's saying, like, from the beginning, he picks out the strongest dude and it's like, I'm fighting him. Because he believes in himself, he's him. Meanwhile, Zoro is him. So Zoro fights the second strongest guy, or sometimes arguably another strong guy. So in reality, we're just like, yo, it's really crazy because Luffy is just becoming, he's that guy. And he's just like, nope, this is our friend. We'll fight, we'll do whatever it takes for our friends. So now at this point, he's really demonstrated his character. So he's not intelligent. He has very strong character. That's what makes Luffy, Luffy. And so now I'm starting to understand why people appreciate him so much. Long story short, they save Robin, but now they're about to issue a buster call, which they have to escape from. And now we see the full weight of the military's corruption. And at this point now, I think the anime has kind of really defined itself. Remember how I said earlier that the anime was listless? It's not listless anymore. Now it's defined itself. They're pirates, which means that they're the bad guys, and they're fighting against a government, which is like a collection, I think they said, of like 192 countries, and that has all of the weight of its power and has, whatever, and that there's a balance now between the government and some great pirates, which I just, I'm sorry, that part I watched like 2 episodes of post Enies lobby, so I shouldn't know that yet. But in any case, so now at this point, we're starting to see this is the direction that the anime goes. Now they're gonna have they already had super high bounties, but now they have the world are gonna be against them while they're on this grand line. But they're the most powerful. They're them. So, I mean, it'll play out its definition, but I'm pretty sure now that the definition is the pirates against the world government, which is crazy, right? I mean, technically that's already been there, right? But not in a very definite way, because Luffy just wanted to be the king of the pirates. He just wanted to like find the One Piece. He wanted to, get stronger and so on and so forth. I don't even know where that was born in him. That's another thing that clicked for me. When Usopp was talking to the dude and they were mentioning Elbaf, and it occurred to me that Elbaf is Fable backwards. And I was like, oh snap. Yeah, like that's like the Fable, the Giants, and whatever. So I'm starting to see all these things, and which is ironic because again, I think Usopp might be a play on Aesop. It could be. I don't know. But so all of these details are starting to like add together to make the anime. So in conclusion, I think the anime at this point is worth it for me. This is a good anime to me. Now, I cannot recommend the anime to other people yet because it hasn't gotten good enough to justify how long the anime is. For the first time now, I can say this anime is absolutely worth watching for me. I'm willing to sacrifice the time. I'm using One Pace to like speed it up and so on and so forth, but it is rich. It's a rich anime. So I can't recommend it to people yet, but if it keeps getting good the way it is, and depending on how these new arcs start kind of defining themselves, then it'll become the anime that I can say, hey, this is actually worth your time. Because while all this story, and I'm explaining all these good things about the anime that make it like rich and make it like worth watching, I can't justify the amount of time it would take to watch the anime, if that makes sense. So with that being said, I can't tell you, yo, you should watch this. But what I can say is, it's good. It is good. It's becoming great. If it fully ascends to greatness is when I'm just like, yo, you have to watch this. There are certain things that I feel like literally enhance your life for having watched them. And if you haven't watched them, you've actually missed out on an important thing in life. I would say one of those things is BoJack Horseman. Watch it all the way to the end. Blow your mind. Stuff like that where I remember I hated it. And the only reason I actually started watching BoJack Horseman was because my friends recommended it. It was Alucard, aka Brian, Jeff, and Knives, and they like kept telling me, you gotta watch this thing, and I tried it and I hated it with all my being, and they kept saying, no, trust me, bro, just give it a chance, just keep going, and I'm like, this is trash, I hate it. And I watched it in the background until it finally clicked, and then I'm like, this is one of the best experiences I've ever had with any media in my entire life. It's crazy. So with that being said, those same friends are the ones that were telling me, yo, you got to watch One Piece. And so far, I don't know that they're right yet. It is good. I'm liking it, but we'll see. There's so many details I want to know. What's the deal with Zoro's bandana? Why did he put it on and take it off? Like, what does that make him more powerful? I don't get it. Where did Luffy learn this gear thing? Who was that hat guy? His brother? Like, who is he? And where is he? Like, what's going on with him? And he seems like he was more powerful than Luffy. Is Luffy caught up to him now? What is the One Piece? And it sounded like you can get a second fruit that they mentioned. You can have a devil fruit and a Logia fruit, and that the fruit won't kill itself or whatever, right? It won't kill you. It sounded like there's something like they were saying, I think. So whatever. When's Luffy gonna learn the shave ability? Is he gonna learn it? All of these things, like the anime just has to answer. So we'll see where it goes. I think the anime is good, without a doubt. It's clearly well done so far. Still has a long way to go. I'm only on like getting close to 400 mark. So I'm not even halfway done with the anime. I am one pacing, but so I can say that Nico has finally become a character. I think, her fighting, she's still not my favorite, but at least now we do have more of a character. She matters. What's with these poneglyphs? What freak are we gonna figure out? What was the hidden history like that they're hiding? Look up the Library of Alexandria, and that's the thing that also is hitting me about this anime. Is it seems like there's always a comparison between these two things, like a parallel within our real world. Again, when I see that conflict with those people that were like occupying that place and so on and so forth, I see that stuff play out in real life. Gaza, when I see like this whole tree of knowledge that's getting burned, that the military is hiding because they're like researching something they're not supposed to. I mean, I see Library at Alexandria. I've always been attracted to esoteric knowledge. And so I'm starting to see like some of the historical pertinence in the same way that like Attack on Titan, no, we're not going there. My point being, it is becoming good. This is a very long-winded thing. I had very, very few notes. I'm just kind of riffing off the top of my head. I don't expect most people to watch this because this is like an hour long and most people don't even know who the freak I am. So then it's like, why would you care about what I think about my anime? This is more so just for my friends, because a bunch of the friends who have recommended it and the people, whatever, those people have all asked like, hey, what do you think? Like, I want to hear what your thoughts are, yada, 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 yada. So I'm doing that. This is it. This is what I think so far. This is my analysis, and we'll keep going, and I'll try to keep up and like do each arc maybe. I don't know if something is profound enough that I feel like I should. But yeah, I think the anime is good. I think it's good. I missed some of the beginning. I feel like my brain wasn't fully on while I was watching some of it. So I don't remember in detail, like Logtown, some of it, because it just didn't feel like an anime yet. So I wasn't so invested. Now I'm actually taking notes as I watch, because there's just questions like, what is this? I don't know. It's a journey. It's a journey, and it's getting better. Okay. Anyway, see you guys in the next one. Peace. Escape and float into my